All right, welcome in everybody. I've got my buddy here, Justin. Really happy to have him here. He is a striving Shigin professional. Wants to become one of the first foreign teachers, or gaikokujin as we would say, so the first foreign teachers for Shigin. Really happy to talk to you today about it. And so, but before we get into it, can you give us a little lowdown about yourself, who you are, and what you do?
Well, thank you, brother, for having me. Um, How y'all doing? My name's Justin. I am uh, currently on my, I think, ninth year of living in Japan. My main profession is I'm a teacher. Currently at like a nursery school, which is very fun. I'm on the side. I do photography and sometimes video editing. I've been doing Shigin, which we'll get into in a minute, about 8 years. I love Japanese culture. I also dabbled a little bit in flower arrangement, and yeah.
So let's get right into it then. Let's start with the Shigin. What is Shigin?
Basically, and by no means you know, I love how you said I'm a striving professionally, or one day I want to hopefully teach this. I still have a long way to go in what I'm learning, but thanks be to God, I have a wonderful teacher. But from what I was able to learn, it's essentially what it in Japanese is called as a kanji, which is
Hmm.
Chinese poems that are sung, right? And so I got my book with me. If you look into it, the um, style of Chinese poetry that this comes from, I read in a book somewhere. I think it's like it's not classical, like not ancient Chinese poetry, but it's slightly, I guess, falls under like modern. It's like several hundred years old, but I mean, given the length of
Chinese
time that
history,
Chinese
yeah.
history spans, right?
Hmm.
And it's basically it's most of the poems are either five or seven characters per line with
Hmm. So
like here's one,
would it
right?
be like, yeah, so it's like the Japanese like waka and tanka poetry, is that correct?
Kind of, yeah. The rhythm, the amount of words and everything are different, but they're similar in that there's a structure to them,
Okay.
right? Like there's a set, number of characters you have per line that
Hmm.
makes up that particular style of poetry. Like I think most of the people who watch this would probably be familiar with the haiku, right?
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, I think the haiku is five characters, seven characters, five characters.
Hmm.
I think, right?
Yeah, five
And so
sounds,
with
seven sounds, five sounds.
right, okay. And so how this works usually is you'll have most poems are four lines or four columns, and you'll either have five characters or sometimes seven characters
Oh,
per
each line.
column.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's uniformed in
Yes.
there. Okay, so we're
Yeah.
looking at one we're looking at that first one. Let's take that one for example. So
Hmm.
here we have the poem, obviously. We have
Hmm.
of course with that the meanings.
See, I'm just glancing at this to try to like
Yeah, because
grasp the
it's like
meaning.
the
Like,
I don't mean to put you on the spot for it as well, but
no, no,
so
no, no.
we get like a full meaning of it, right?
Right, right,
And from
right.
that you can from looking at it you can tell, all right, so here are some of the themes of it. You know, we're talking like maybe springtime. There's something to
Oh
do
yeah,
with
yeah,
the
yeah,
morning
yeah, yeah,
and stuff like
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah,
And then we get
yeah,
like
yeah.
a yeah. So I don't mean like what is the full
No, no.
history of it, but
Um,
like
okay, yeah. So like how these will usually work.
okay.
Now, granted. Oh, also another thing which I think is worth noting. Um, how these work is you'll note that they're all written in Chinese,
Yes.
which would be here. And then to the side, I don't know if you can see it, you can see the hiragana of it.
Yes.
And so how this is structured is you have the Chinese word order, like how it would be read in Chinese. And then next to it, you have the Japanese not only reading but also the Japanese word order. So if you were to like, if you, let's say, you're fluent in Japanese, or you're a native Japanese speaker, and you were to cover up this Chinese part, and you were to read it, and then you were to transcribe it in Japanese, kanji and everything, the word order would be different. The character order would be different. So you kind of have the Chinese order and then the Japanese order. And also, these follow a story, where, with this one, like I said, I just opened it up to a random page, and it takes me a while to kind of learn all these poems. But with a good majority of them, you'll have kind of the first line. I guess a good way to describe it would be like the setup of your story, and then the second line, you'll have kind of some sort of event or action takes place, and then the third will be kind of the main. I think it was described to me once like there was like a change in the story, or there's some big realization or some emphasis, and then the final line will be like either a conclusion to the story, or sort of a summary or a moral to the story, that type of thing. So you'll have a lot of these that'll follow that kind of simple, kind of 4-part story arc. In most of them, some of them, some of these are a lot longer, and some of these, this, I think the book I have now, I think a good number of this is the 4th in the style that I'm doing, and we have songs here that are written in like the 1700s, and then you'll have some that are written in like the 1800s, and then you'll have sprinkled throughout them some that were written in like the 20s, the 1920s, or the 30s. So these poems cover a wide range of stories, and in some cases historical events. Like I think there's I can't think of one off the top of my head, but there's several that reference, historical battles, or I think there's one, I forget which book it's in, but there's one poem that was written, I think in the 20s or 30s, about a boat accident that happened. No, I think the poem is from the 30s or 40s, and it's about an event that happened in like the 1920s, where there was a boat accident and all these like young children were lost and everything. And so, and then you'll have something like, let's say Fuji-san, right? Which is, and I wish I had my book. I need to find it and I'll show it to you. But like usually when you learn Shigin, because there's a whole bunch of styles of how to sing these poems, but the poems are all kind of the same, right? There's most of these are.
So there's like different poem. Like traditions of, if you study with this teacher in this lineage, the melodies are done this way. If you do with this teacher and that, okay, so typical like Liu Ha system in the Shigin. Okay, perfect. Exactly, I think a lot of the people on this channel will understand the Liu Ha system for sure. Right. So you showed us that first one, and so there's 5 lines in being sung. About how long is that?
If it's just like a standard one, maybe about a minute and 40-50 seconds usually.
So it's
under 2 minutes.
So that's pretty long on each character then. So you have,
well, yeah, it also kind of depends on the number of characters. Like let me see if I can find it.
But it doesn't have like because like I'm almost like imagining like how the Kouta style sounds like with shamisen, and they're very short, like 40 seconds, 50 seconds long,
right?
And they're like, they're a same kind of length of poem. So this one almost has some of the words being really drawn out for a long period of time.
Oh, for sure. Especially if you have some of the 5 character poems, which is with those you sing a little bit slower, and that's also used to kind of help emphasize the kind of the feeling of the song. Let me see if I can find one real quick that I'm more familiar with. I think it's in the book I showed you. So like, for example, there's one that I really like. It's called oh, this one. Okay. I'll get to this one in a second. Like there's one song called, well, there's many names to it, but for example, it's called Kawanakajima
Mhm.
in some styles. In other styles, it's called Fushiki an Kizano Utsuno Zuni Daisu, which is a mouthful. But basically, that song is about it's about half the length just to say the title. It's a poem about samurais getting ready for battle, right?
Mm.
And so I can make sure I'm not being too loud. So like in the beginning, the very first part of the poem is Bensei Shukushuku, right? And that's supposed to be from like the imagery of like the tall grass kind of blowing in the wind,
Oh, that's
right?
nice.
And because it's setting you up like with that 4-part little story arc, it's setting you up like, you know, you're getting ready, you're in the grass, the wind's blowing, you're about to get up, and then you finally found these enemies you're trying to get after for like 10 years. And so when you start it, it's just that part, Binsei Shuku Shuku, right? Sounds pretty short. But when you sing it, and I'm gonna try not to be too loud because I got, you know, neighbors and everything, but it's like Bensei Shuku Shuku, right? That was
Mm-hmm.
terrible, but you know, so like
No, it
you're
sounds
trying
great,
to
man.
like you're trying to, you know, really get into that mood of, okay, hey, yo, it's about to go down, and then
Yeah,
later on,
you put in the timbres of the in the voice to create that sense of energy and excitement.
right,
That
right,
yeah, setting the emotional scene of
exactly.
the spirit of the samurai for sure.
Exactly. And then so like in that same song, at when you get to the end of the second line and the beginning of the third, so the third line is like that's the impact of the song, right? That's kind of like when it starts going down. So like at the end of the second line, you have trying to think of like the last word of it, of the second line is like yo suru, and then like you're kind of getting slower, and then you get to the third part of ikon junen. So it's like
Mm,
so like ikon junen is like you've been waiting kind of 10 years, right? So it's like ikon
mm,
junen Ikeo Mingaki. So like you've been waiting 10 years, like polishing your sword, waiting to
mhm.
get your revenge, and it's like you finally got your revenge, you know. So
You know,
it
I even that like I can see that kind of like really cinematic scene of the person who just sharpens that
bruh,
blade every single
bruh.
day.
What's the dude what's the Japanese director, Akira Kurosawa, is that it?
Yes, that's right.
It's like yeah, imagine like singing one of his movies. It's basically what it's like.
That's
um
fantastic. Okay, so I have
and
so many
so
questions
yeah,
even just about that. So even what you just sung, and I
yeah,
have my notes here. So the scene is
yeah.
painted. I
Hmm,
get the melodic feel. I get the
hmm,
storytelling. All of that's clear.
hmm.
How does the melody come? Because when I saw the page, I didn't see any note details whatsoever.
Well,
At least for my
okay,
unlearned mind, I didn't
right.
see stuff there.
So here I think a good example would be kind of this song here, because this is one that I actually know. Like I can explain this one to you. The other one too, the samurai one, I can explain that to you, but I don't have the book with me right now. Would be, and forgive all the like the messy notes, but it shows you that I'm practicing. This one. Now this song is called Seiyashi, and if I'm trying to get closer, it's silent. I can look this way: silent night and kind of memory.
Mhm.
And so what's kind of the basic story of this is you're at night outside, you're looking up at the moon, and you're kind of just remembering you want to go home. Like you're kind of missing your home in your hometown, and you're kind of lonely. And I love this song because, you know, I live in Japan. I'm not Japanese, I'm American. So it's like sometimes, you know, I miss home, and, you know, we all we understand that. So I love this
Absolutely.
song. And this one, unlike the one I think I showed you previous, is only about 5 characters, right? 5 characters per line. So this one you would sing slightly slower, right? And you'll see, I keep switching it back and forth, sorry. The red notes. Well,
Now,
kind
is
of like
the red note, is that your handwriting or is that already in the score?
Oh, this is in it. This is with the style that I do.
Okay.
Now, like I said, there's a whole bunch of other styles, and some of them will have like radically different notation. I guess you call them notations, like markings of how to move your voice, right? So
now I'm just guessing. The 3 is that like the 3rd pitch in the scale?
Yeah, this would be a 3.5, and how that works. Hold on. I have this little.
They have an app for it, don't they?
Yeah, yes, they do. Like only one. Like they kind of need to fix it, because it's like it's a little bit off compared to what the little instrument that teachers use. So, quick side note. So, like when you do the Shigin practice, they have something which is, it's like a digital. What's the name of it? It's not a recorder. It's like a digital conductor, and so it's kind of like this, where it'll have the scale, and the scale that's used here is like, if you look at it, it's like do re mi fa sol la ti do. It's basically the regular scale, right? But there's, I think, one note that is not used, and I think it's so.
Okay.
Like do re mi fa so. Yeah, so is, I think, the one that's not used. So it's like a 7-note scale, and so if you get like one of the conductors that the teachers use, you'll see it'll have these numbers written on them, right? So like a 1, 2, 3. This kind of like
That's
a 3.5.
the 3 half, yeah.
Yeah, 3.5, and then so this would be my start note, and also here, where it has here, it says like gohon.
Yes.
That would be you can help me out with this. I think, what do you call that? Your is that your pitch? Not your octave, your pitch, right? Like how your voice is. So for me, when I sing, my range is from like a 3 to a 6.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, yeah, because and sometimes what they'll do in like the older style pieces, like really old, they actually have names for all the keys, and so they'll call them like ichikotsu, tangin, hyojo, shozetsu, and like those are some of like the old like ways of calling like D, E flat, E, F, F sharp, and stuff like that. So they're just kind of replacing it with a numerical value of each Nissan Shigo. So that's interesting.
That might, I've never actually asked, and I might want to do that like next time. I kind of ask my teacher like where this comes from. Why is it called Ippo Nihon Sanbon? Like why is it used using that way of naming it? So I've never thought about that, but I might. That'd be like an interesting thing to ask.
So as you know, and some of my audience members, that I studied Shomyo for better half of a year, and in that I did an intense study of like hours every single day with a priest from a really reputable temple. And we went through all of that stuff, and so what some of the things that you're saying are kind of giving me like flashbacks of the lessons that I had that are really similar. Okay, so you get the third pitch, so the 3.5 pitch.
Right.
How do you know what to do with it? So the lines on the side there, because if that's the case, some of the lines are reminding me of shakuhachi notation a little bit.
Yeah. So now I got to explain this a little bit, because some of these red marks are mine and some are not. Okay, so this right here, this long line here.
Yes.
That's just me writing, but like just to See, this is kind of hard. Like I'm trying to show it to you and look at it at the same time. But like, so like here you have show underneath show, right? You have like a little
Yes.
line.
Yes.
So here, this would be just kind of, you don't you use any vibrato. You don't go, well, you always have a little bit of vibrato. You don't necessarily go up in pitch or down. So it's kind of like show zen. And then here you'll see how it goes down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So you start here with the 3.5. So shozen. And then I think if you can see it, because I kind of, my handwriting's all messy. So how this works is you'll go down, up, and then down. So shozen. And then the 7, you would jump all the way up to a 7. So chosen. Then the 7. Get cold. Like that. So that's kind of how that goes. And now where this melody came from, it came from the woman who started this particular style that I do, the Kinjo style, and it came from her. She's the one that kind of started. And I think actually, from what I've heard, there's I think in the beginning, like Shigin was not the very, very beginning, but Shigin used to be very closely connected with the Biwa.
That's kind of where I wanted to go with it, because I've heard a lot of Chikuzen biwa and Samatsu biwa where they have these really long epics about, you know, samurai and events in the past, and the singing style really reminded me of that. So that makes a lot of sense.
The woman who started the style, she started out with the biwa. I think in the 20s or 30s, I think she started out with the biwa, and then she kind of developed her own Shigin style. And then her children kind of took over, and her children are now like in their mid to late 80s. But you know, there's a lot of people I know that are biwa players, and there's a lot of Shigin kind of mixed into with their music. And because you mentioned I think the Buddhist music, what is that called? I keep forgetting. Shomyo. I was at my church in Fukushima. I'm Orthodox, and I like randomly, there was this Russian lady there from a music institute in Russia, and I said I talked to her, and Lord forgive me, I got all prideful. I was like, hey, let me educate this Russian woman who I think she's like in her like early 60s. She has just decades of just phenomenal music experience. She plays the koto, plays the shamisen. I didn't know that at the time, but it's a fantastic woman. And me, Lord forgive me, I was like, let me educate her on Shigin. And so I go up, I ask her, thinking she don't know about it. I was like, hey, I do Shigin. Have you heard of? I was gentle. I'm still in church here. I can't be. I'm trying to be gentle with how I ask it. And then she says, oh yeah, that stuff. You know, it's linked to like Buddhist music and stuff. I was like, and then the instant she said that, I was like, okay, Lord, I'm sorry. That's what I get. That's what I get for trying to be prideful. But then that actually was kind of a cool conversation, because I was like, wait, I didn't know that. And she's like, oh yeah, a lot of this, has some links to the Buddhist music and the chanting. And I think when you did the shomyo, right? It really reminded me of that. So, I think a lot of this stuff is linked. Just like I heard I don't know if this is a good segue or not, but like the links between Byzantine music and Western music, they're all kind of linked together,
So Zoom is being is terrible on us, and it only gives us 40 minutes, and the interview
Yeah.
is so exciting. So I'm gonna pause this interview, and then we're gonna go to part two. And for all the people watching, it's gonna be seamless. But for us, there's a bunch of things backstage that have to happen. So we'll be right back, and we're gonna go to, and actually, well, maybe this is a perfect time to also insert one of your videos. So enjoy a video, a quick little performance by Justin, and we'll be right back with more of how he got into this in general.
人に白定常を発す利白足谷実白定才
All right, and we are back. Thank you for. I hope you guys enjoyed the little video, the little performance. I haven't heard it yet, but I know it's going to be amazing. So I'm going to say I know that you enjoyed that performance. So tell me, how did you get into Shigin in the first place?
Well, it was through my flower arrangement teacher, who happened to be like the same person. My flower arrangement teacher was my first Shigin teacher. And, you know, I was, I think, at her house one day, just kind of doing the little flower arrangement. And then I don't remember exactly if it's like I saw a book on her table or she sang it or somehow I kind of noticed the book and I was like, yo, what is this? And she's like, yo, it's Shigin. And she sang a little bit of it. And one of my first thoughts was, you know, again, back to me being Orthodox, was like, you know, that sounds kind of like church music. Hold up. What is this? Mm-hmm. And then, you know, I started trying it out a little bit. I was like, oh man, I like this. Okay. And then, yeah, that's the super short version. But yeah, I've been doing it for like 8 years now. And like, that's
exactly
just,
how I felt too.
It's really fun. You know?
And that's exactly how I felt too about like the Shomyo stuff. Is it reminded me a lot of like the Jewish synagogue music, some of the Byzantine chants, and actually my Greek teacher is also an Orthodox priest. So when I sing, I've sung for him before, and he's like, "Wow, that's all really similar to some of like the old like psalms and that we do." And there's like some sort of relationship. So it sounds really, really cool as well.
Pause. Like. Bruh. Okay. So I've been trying. Well, don't pause the interview. I'm just like, bruh, I've been trying for years to find more people to tell how similar, and I've told some Japanese people here that are, in the church with me, that have actually gone to seminary and studied the church languages and stuff, and they're like, yeah, dude, of course they're similar. They all kind of have like the same kind of like cultural influences and backgrounds. It's like, yeah, I know, but like most people need to like be aware of how that connection can be made. You know what I'm saying? Like, like I think, like for example, the Japanese people, when they think of Christian music, they think of just like, like American gospel. And again, I'm Southern, I'm Black, I love me some gospel music. That's my that's my roots. You feel me? But I'm like, there's a lot
it's not
more.
just that. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
just that.
And it's also not just the feeling of, because I think a lot of people have the image of gospel music being kind of fun, which it is. I mean, it's very fun. It's very energetic and everything. But one thing I learned through attempting to study Byzantine music is that there is a very important role that, I say I'm an English teacher, but I'm terrible at words, that I don't know if this makes sense or not, sobriety plays in how we sing, like singing in a sober kind of almost, I guess, from a Western ear, dark sounding tone to kind of like explain.
Is the word you're looking for like melancholy?
No, it's not that dark, but it just sounds somber. Somber. Like, okay. For example, like what is it called? I think it's called the grave mode. I think in Byzantine, where I'm not even going to try to remember. I can't remember exactly what tone is, but there are several tones in Byzantine chant, and you use some of these tones and melodic patterns during like funerals, or during, for example, Great Lent, when we have Great Lent, like the 40-50 day period leading up to Pascha. It's like a lot of the psalms that are sung, a lot of the prayers that are sung in kind of these slower, almost darker tones to try to reflect the importance of the season, right? And I think here with the Shigin, not just with the style that I do, and not even just with Shigin, but with all kind of the traditional forms of Japanese singing that are out there, it kind of lets you realize that there's so many more emotions that we can express through song. And I think in recent decades, recent centuries, we've kind of moved towards kind of a certain bandwidth of emotions in our music, and we've kind of not emphasized the other ones, if that makes any sense. And I think learning the Shigin and
I think you're and completely right about this, and that's one of the things I noticed a lot about a lot of the early synagogue music, is that it's not just, there are songs that are of course joyful. I mean, you think of Psalm 150, it is just like a completely, like, I mean, everybody is happy to sing that song. It's all about joy and praise. But then there's other ones where it's like you're on the brink of death and you can't. I mean, well, you could, but the melodies that are written for it, they don't fit the text. And I looked up really quickly just the Byzantine chant that you were mentioning, specifically with the grave mode, and you're right. However, I have no idea about their solfege, because it's actually in a Greek system. And it looks like the bass note is Zol. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, but, it's similar. It's very similar to I think the scale is, ni pavu gadi kezo ni, right? Is kind of the scale that's used. And from what I heard, it's almost the same as the do re mi scale. It's almost the same. But for example, like there's an American chanter that I love. His name is John Boyer. And later on, I think I'm gonna send you a link to one of the videos. and of him singing, I think, Psalm 22 in how it's numbered in the Orthodox Bibles, but in more kind of Western, I think King James and stuff, it'll be, I think, Psalm 23.
Yeah.
So the number's slightly off. Psalm 22, Psalm 23. And how he sings it, because, you know, the open line, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, right? He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul, right? Like, that's a very joyous song. But then you hear him sing it. It's like, I'm going to do a horrible job with this, but he's like, hold on. He's like, the Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. Right, like that. And it's kind of like, listen and put it in here if you can, because it's just beautiful how he sings it. But like, you'll have the text, and then it's kind of like drawing out the meaning of the text, because what I've heard from different chanters and everything like that, like, the focus is the text, not necessarily your voice, but what you're singing. And then to pull it back to the Shigin, it's kind of the same, in the sense that the focus is the text, right? You want to pull out the emotion that the writer put into the text, and you want to convey that feeling. Like my grandmama sensei told me, my first teacher, when we were going through a song, and I think it was a longer one. It was one of the maybe 2 or 3 page songs that'll take you maybe like 5 minutes to sing. And the theme of that was basically the aftermaths of war. And you had, this story was basically like of a young mother who lost everything in the war, and she now has a new baby, and she's walking through the streets with her new baby, and she is at the lowest possible point she could be. And she's like, and in the text, it's saying, if I feed this baby, if I try to, you know, find food, there's not enough for us and the baby, but I can't just let the baby die. What do I do? And then it's like, she's looking up to the heavens, and like, and then she sees this like rich family's house, and then she puts the baby on their doorstep and then leaves. And as she leaves, I think it says something to the effect of like, the birds are crying with her, right? And my teacher said to me, my grandmama sensei said, when you have these, there's a lot of songs like that in like the collection of poems that are done in Shigin. Like, you have a lot of songs about death and war and sacrifice. She said to me, she's like, you don't show your emotions when you sing. Like, if you're reading a really sad song and you get sad and cry, you don't, you know, you never get emotional, but in your voice, you pull that out of the audience, right? Like, you make them feel that. And I want to say I'm blessed to have been told twice by people after I got off stage that they said it sounded like you were praying. And when I heard that, I was like, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of like, that's my goal, is to be told like it sounds like you're praying, you know, when you're singing, right?
That's wonderful. You know, and it's one of the other compliments that I've gotten a few times. Not that like when I'm playing shakuhachi, it sounds like praying, but they say that there's something very deep and very spiritual happening, and they realize that it's, you know, it's not just drawing from yourself, as you said, but, you know, also working with your audience member and seeing where, like, you know, you kind of connect with them, you look at their eyes and you see what they're feeling, and then you start to like feed off that energy and start giving them what they are expecting, but also giving them a little bit something else that they weren't expecting, to kind of create a communication between them. Well, I absolutely love this. I'm really excited to put this in as well. And Psalm 23 is actually one of my favorites too. I mean, it's a lot of Christians' favorites as well. It's one of the few I have. My favorite verse in is Yachaniva Malgelet Tzedek Lema Shemo, which is the Hebrew for. So I absolutely love that. Let's see here. Wonderful stuff. Now, do you have any plans on trying to do some of the Shigin style with some of the Psalms or any other like biblical passages?
I mean, that's that's something I've thought about, and over the years I've maybe sat down for like a few minutes total, kind of going through, because I have with me the book of the Psalms, the Psalter here that we use in the Orthodox Church in Japan, and one of the things about it is the type of Japanese that it uses. It uses, I think it's technically it's Meiji era Japanese, because I think when this was translated, Meiji, towards the end of Meiji, but no. I think this is the Showa revised version, but the original version of this was done, I think, during the Meiji era. And it uses a lot of the, let me get to Psalm. Oh, yeah, here we go. So here it is at the beginning of Psalm 22, but for other Bibles, it'll probably be Psalm 23 or 21.
23.
I forget. 23, right?
Yeah, we're 23.
And so here you'll have kind of the kanji.
Now, is that's supposed to be saying like shu wa ware no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Shu wa ware no. And I actually asked someone a long time ago, why is there no hiragana in this? Because if you look, everything is either kanji or katakana.
Yes.
And I think what I was told is that during, I think up until relatively like very recently, katakana and kanji were used for more, the way it was explained to me, like official documents and kind of textbooks and those types of things, whereas like hiragana was more artistic. Right. And because like I have a waka book, and waka is, for if y'all don't know, it's like a separate type of poetry, right? The style's different, and how you sing it's different. Even within my style, the Kinjo style that I do has its own waka book, but singing that is different from how you sing the Shigin, right? It's the bass is kind of the same, but then the timing and everything's a little bit different. Actually, I can grab that here in a second. And actually, wait, I'll grab it because I want to show you how they write the hiragana. It's crazy. It's beautiful, but it's just like I never open the book because I can't read it.
You give up on it?
I am terribly sorry. I could not find it.
Not a problem.
Yeah. I'll kind of continue from this point. Well, unfortunately, I couldn't find it, and my wife lovingly put out noted, yes, that's why you need to clean your stuff up, because I haven't cleaned up my bookshelf in a while. But with how it's written, and next time I talk to y'all, I'm gonna show it to you. It's kind of beautiful how they would write. And I think you can, if I find some pictures or something, I'll try to send it to you, how they would, when they write a lot of the calligraphy with the hiragana, it's extremely curvy, right?
So I know what you're talking about. So that's I could go on for a long time about that, so I'm not even going to start. But yes, it was more used for small brush artwork. So absolutely, and it flows. It flows nicer. The katakana is so rigid, right? And so it's also what's thought to be more masculine as well. So it has much more of that formal look to it because everything. And I actually have documents, and I actually have a war memoir of my wife's great grandfather, and it also has, like, he's writing in Japanese characters, but he doesn't use any hiragana. He uses all katakana. And I asked about that, and he's like, oh, well, they thought it was more like kakoi, like it would look stronger to write in katakana.
Yeah, that's what also I heard too. They said that the hiragana at the time was more of, they say it was more feminine. It was more for the poetry. It was more for the art.
Yeah, and it's rounded, and it has that sort of like, that look of more like feminine character, like what we would ascribe to as feminine characters.
Yeah, all in a good way. That kind of loving, soft way, and then the katakana, which is
Stubborn
it's very
and
interesting.
rough.
It's stubborn and stubborn. Yeah. I mean, yeah. You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Okay, so you
Uh,
have a YouTube channel that you're getting started up with that you've got a couple of videos up on. I'll link that
yes.
into the description below. Is there anything else that you'd
Thank
want
you.
my audience member to know before I send you on your way?
Um. Yeah. If any of y'all come to Japan, if you plan to come to Japan, because I've heard a lot from different foreigners that come to Japan, and it can be rough in the beginning with the cultural differences and social differences or whatever. But I highly recommend you get into the traditional Japanese arts as much as you can, as long as you're interested in it. I don't want to force you into anything, but get into the traditional arts, the traditional music, painting, poetry, learn how to do the kimono, bonsai, all these things. It'll give you, I think, some much needed context for why Japan is the way it is. And also it'll act as a sort of bridge between you and the Japanese people, because a lot of Japanese people here, they spend a lot of their lives around people that just look, talk, and act like them, which is not wrong at all. But they don't get exposed to a lot of people from different cultures and things like that. But if you come here and you kind of attempt to immerse yourself in the culture, especially things that a lot of that maybe young Japanese people don't do, it kind of motivates them, because like, oh man, dang, okay, he's here, she's here, and they're learning about this stuff that like even I don't know, and I'm Japanese. That's impressive. And it also kind of helps you understand each other better.
I think it stimulates their own interest in their own culture too. And I think that, so most of the people on this channel, they're going to be interested in or be playing shakuhachi. So, and I would just say, even though you are doing shakuhachi, check out a lot of these other arts as too, like especially calligraphy, bonsai, shigin, shomyo, whatever it may be, because all of them are so interlinked. Because Japanese, it's this very interesting thing where Japanese aestheticism seems to just permeate in all areas of life for Japanese people, whether it be architect, like what if you would ask a Japanese person, what does architecture, calligraphy, and legal system have to do with each other? And the answer would be they all have the same aesthetic, and they'd be like, what? And then that's where you would have to get into the learning about the aesthetics, or even of how they do business meetings and how they manage time is the same way that they manage time in music. And it's very, very interesting on how they how the aesthetics are just such a baseline, so fundamental to the culture. So the more other styles and the more of the language that you learn, the more it helps develop your artistic skill as well.
Yes, very much so. Yeah. And also, I think if you're interested in music or art, but let's say you come here and you're not that good at it, or let's say you've been playing the shakuhachi for years, but you're thinking about, hey, let me try another Japanese art form, but I'm not so sure at it. I have learning Shigin has helped me kind of understand other forms of music. Now, I may not have all the terminology down, but I've finally been able to hear professional singers sing and understand kind of the mechanics behind how they're doing it. In the beginning, it was just like, hey, that person has a really beautiful voice. I wish I could sing like that. But now, because I've been doing this for years, and I have other, real professional friends that kind of give me advice and things like that, I understand, hey, that person that has a beautiful voice is not just a beautiful voice.
And you just froze on me right before the beautiful voice comment. I want to see, hopefully he comes back in just a second. If not,
okay, you see me?
Okay, yeah, there we go. Go back. So you said, and that other person has a beautiful voice, and then
okay, Can you see me? Am I good?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. It used to be, oh man, that person has a beautiful voice, but now it's like, wait, that person has a beautiful voice, but there's technique behind that beautiful voice. There's breath control behind that beautiful voice. There's things behind that person's singing that I could learn. Now, of course, I'm not, each person has their own, God-given beautiful talents and their own unique voice, but like, wait, learning Shigin, learning this type of style of music, the I guess you call it the philosophy behind this kind of music, it helps me better my own unique instrument, my voice. And you never know, if you come to Japan and you start some of these other forms of music, it may help you understand other forms of music that you're trying to get into.
Absolutely.
It's always widening your horizons.
Absolutely. 100%. Well, Justin, thank you so much for coming on, brother. Always pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.
Same and here. So please go down to the description box. Make sure you give him a subscribe and a follow, and like all his videos and comment 10 times. Boost up, trick the algorithm. And
please. I keep on telling people I'm trying to get enough YouTube money to buy some Pop-Tarts. You feel me? Help a brother get some Pop-Tarts.
Pop-Tarts in Japan are very expensive, my friend.
That's what I'm saying. I need your help.
They're very expensive. Well, it's always a pleasure talking with you. Looking forward to doing it again. And for everybody else, thank you again for joining another interview. And I'll see you guys next time.